stamping friends, Sandi MacIver here from Stampin' and Blogging and Stamping with Sandi, and today's Tool Talk I am going to share with you, well, a new baby I have in the house. Check these out. Intense. They're actually called ink pencils, not pencil crayons or colored pencils. And look at this, there's 72 in the set. So what I'm going to show you today is how I blend with them because they're ink and because they're intense, they're a little bit different than what we're used to. So the first thing I do when I get a new product is I like to do a matrix, and that's exactly what I've done with this. Each of the pencils is numbered, and so what I did was I wrote the name down. They also have a name on them, and I have done a little squiggly, and then I have blended it out with my aqua painter because these are watercolor pencils, even though they've got ink in them, and the color, as you can see, is as the words say, intense. They are awesome. So first I do that. The second thing I do is I stamp an image a whole pile of times, and then I actually get in and play with some different colors and see how they blend together, see how the ink moves around because it's a little bit different, and I write down the colors that I used, and just in case I want to repeat some of these guys because I like how they blended. Okay, so watercolor crayons. That means we're going to be getting the paper wet, so when you stamp your image, you want to remember to use permanent ink. So Stays-On from Stampin' Up, Memento, both of them work very well. I have my little image stamped right here, and it is from a new stamp from Stampin' Up's Spring Occasions catalog. It's called Blessed Easter, and you'll see that there is a sentiment and the flower. You may also see that the sentiment is missing. I took my craft knife and I cut it off, and I mounted it onto a different piece of wood, so that with this flower I could use any sentiment I wanted to. Okay, so let's color. What I do is I pick 3 different shades from the same family. So what I have here are carmine pink, chili red, and crimson. Okay, so chili red is the darkest. We'll always start with the lightest, and what I like to do is I like to place my lightest where my highlight colors are going to be. So I'm pretending that my sun is over here, okay, which means I'm going to have lighter colors on this side of my flower than I am going to have on this side of my flower. And with these, I have decided that I like to blend one layer of color at a time. So I'm just priming my aqua painter here, which means I'm squeezing it to get some water out, and then I'm wiping back some of the water because you want to stay reasonably dry with this. And see how it's just blending that beautiful color in with me, and I'm getting rid of the little pencil marks just by blending the color, okay? And you can pick it up and move it around a little bit. The one thing I will tell you is, because it's ink, you only kind of get one kick at the can for moving the color around, okay? Because once it dries, it's there permanently. It's not like you can go back and move it around some more, which also means that if you color outside the lines, you can't wet it like we can with our other inks and go back and pull it back. It doesn't work that way. Okay, so I have that first one done. Now I'm going to come in with my second color, and I'm going to add a little bit of depth to the bottom of my flower. And as soon as this layer is dry, I can go right over it, which is very cool. And the color will move over top of the previous color. It doesn't pick up what you've already laid down. So that's kind of something to get used to, and I think it's very cool. It's fun to play with. Took a little getting used to, but it is fun to play with. Okay, so as you can see, I've highlighted in where the darker color is going to be, and you didn't really notice it, but you will notice it as the paint gets wet. See? The ink, sorry. How I'm blending it. And all of a sudden it's picking up that deeper color, which is very cool. When you look at some of these crayons, you think, I'm not sure I like that color too much. And then when I did my matrix, I was really surprised at the intensity of the color. Hence, I guess, the name of the crayons, right? Would kind of make sense. Okay, so that's my second color. So now I am looking, I think I'm going to go for my darkest color. And again, it's going to be the highlight at the bottom of my flower, so that's where I'm laying down the color. You don't need to color the whole area in which you want this color, because remember, you can move it with your aqua painter. And if you don't have an aqua painter, You can use a paintbrush with a little bit of water, but I gotta tell you, the aqua painter is pretty cool for this. All right, so I'm adding a little bit of detail in here because there's going to be some shadowing going on because these petals actually overlap each other. Now let me tell you a secret about this one. I turn this around this way because I'm going to be pulling the color up into the flower, and I find it easier to pull it towards me than trying to pull it away from me. Okay, so very intense color, so you want to watch how much you're picking up on your brush and wipe it off on your piece of paper towel, just so that you're not really darkening your flower too much. Okay, so I'm just blending and I'm going in where I want this really dark color detail, so get it wet and then move it around. And move it around where you're happy with it, because that's where it's going to stay. Okay, so up here I'm adding a little bit of moisture so that I can move that little pencil line around. There we go. This last guy in here, isn't it beautiful how they're blending? And the colors are just amazing. There we go. A little bit of highlight in there because it's a shadow. All right, so I'm kind of liking the depth that I have there, and here's what's really cool is I may want my highlights a little bit more intense. So because I know that part is almost dry, because that was the first color that we laid down, I can now go back in here and start a second layer. And watch this. This is so cool how this blends. And I'm picking it up and I'm just blending in the rest of my little lighter pieces that maybe were too light, adding some depth in the middle. Okay, so it's kind of like when you're playing with your Copics, you're kind of laying down in thirds. Okay, so you want the lighter at the top, the medium in the middle, and the darker at the bottom, but you're also watching where your shadows are too. So see how I'm darkening where the shadows are? All right, and then up here, because there's a shadow, there we go. So you're going to turn around and do the same thing with the green. And so what I did was, this one is apple green, and I basically flooded the whole area with it. And I wasn't too careful because I know that I can move this around with my aqua painter. So I'm changing colors, I'm cleaning my aqua painter, and I'm simply coming in here and moving the color around. There we go. You can do this really quickly, which is very cool. And look at that color, isn't that amazing? All right, so for my highlight color, I'm using Fern Green, and again, I can do the same thing, come back in and just lay down roughly where I want the color to go, because hey, I can move it around all I want. All right, so again, my sun is over here, so my darker color is going to be on this side because there's going to be a shadow, especially on the back of that leaf right there, and these guys because they're behind my stems and flowers. Okay, so again, picking up my aqua painter, and I'm going to blend these colors together so that they move nicely. There we go. Gets rid of all the little pencil lines and makes it look like paint, which is very cool. All right, so let's add a little bit in there, and there we go. I finished my coloring. Isn't that cool? Okay, so of course, you know, I had to get in and play and see how a few other things worked. I had already painted this one with my aqua painter and my ink pad lids, my Stampin' Up ink pad lids. So those are not permanent colors, okay? And I wondered what would happen if I took this little pencil and I used it to add a little bit of color in the center of my petals. So I'm going over top of ink, okay? So this is Tangerine, and this is very cool. Look at how intensely this color pops and how easy it is to move this color around. It was totally amazing. I have to say I lost a whole day to playing with these things because they rock. They are so much fun. All right, now see how that color moves around? Isn't that just cool? And so you're looking for your highlights because of course that's where your darker color is going to go, and that is what gives you your depth in your flower. And as you can see, I can actually pick this up and move it around to a few other spots because it's wet. But remember, you want to look at all of your petals as they're starting to dry and make sure that you have your color where you want it, because there's no moving it after this dries. So I'm kind of liking that one, and I love the intensity of these colors. So there you go. There's a few projects for you. And of course, we ended up putting this card together. So because I wanted to change the sentiment, I used the 1,000,001 stamp set from Stampin' Up. So there you go. There's the little guy. That's where I got the Fabulous from. And I used my Stamp-A-Majig to make sure that I got it where I wanted it. And then down the edge here, I added a little bit of designer paper. And I'm just going to back up just a hair here so that you can see this whole card. Okay, so the designer paper is from a new paper stack, also in the spring catalog, called Fresh Prints. So you just need, here's how the pieces work. You need 3/4 of an inch by 5.5 to go down the side. You're going to lay your art piece over top of that, and then I had a little sliver that was left over from another project, and I love this designer paper, also from the same stack, so I just added it to the bottom there. And I picked up the red, so my real red came from there. Okay, so these pencil crayons also blend very nicely with Stampin' Up! Colors. I've been going through working on that, and I will show you that when I'm finished matching them all up. So I hope you enjoyed my cool tools today, and I hope you will have fun coloring with all these new pretty tools that we have been playing with. And if you want to see more cool tool ideas, go to my blog, go to the right hand side, and you will see a legend down the side, and there is a little spot there called Tool Talk. Give it a click. I was in there the other day and I noticed that there are 20 other articles just under that button, so have a little look and see. Thanks for stopping in. See you again soon.